Okay guys, what we're going to do today is multiplying the dividing rational expressions. So we're going to take those fractions with the variables in them, and we're going to multiply and divide them. It's going to be similar to what we did yesterday. It's going to use that as a building block. First we're going to look at multiplying though. Okay, so before we can go into this, kind of a big concept is cross-reducing or cross-simplifying. So we already know that we can simplify fractions vertically or up and down, but we also know that we can actually cross-simplify them. So if I look at 4 and 8, I know that 4 goes into both those, so I can actually do 1 and 2. Okay. Same thing with the 9 and the 15. I see that a 3 goes into both of those. Okay, so 3 goes into 9 3 times, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. Now, once I do that, I can actually make it an easier multiplication because 1 times 5 is 5, and 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, cross-simplifying or cross-reducing is going to help us out in this lesson. Now, here's kind of our basic steps. So the first step is always factor. That's the big thing. If we ever have something that has a plus or minus sign in between it, so like x plus 3, x minus 5, things like that, we can't break into them. We have to try to factor them. So if we can factor, factor. Then we're going to cancel our common factors between the numerator and denominator. So yesterday we did it just up and down or vertically. And also, we just talked about how we can do it diagonally. So we can cross factors out that match if they're up and down or diagonally, not side to side. Okay, let's look at some examples. Let's look at this first one. Okay, so this is kind of similar to what we did yesterday, but now here's what we're going to do is we can look vertically or diagonally. So let's look at these. I see this 4 right here. We're just looking at the numbers, okay? No number goes into 4 and 3, but there is a number that goes into 4 and 10, okay? The number that goes into 4 and 10 is 2, so this is actually going to be 2 goes into 4 2 times, 2 goes into 10 5 times, okay? Now let's look at our x's. If you notice, I have 1x up here, so I can take away this x up top for 1x on the bottom. So this is going to become x to the 4th now. Now, if I look at this x over here, I also have another one up top, so I can take away this x for another one on the bottom. So this is actually going to be x to the 3rd. Okay. Now, if we look at our y's, I have 3 y's and another 2 y's on top, so that's 5 y's. And I have 4 y's on the bottom. So I can actually get rid of the 4 y's on the bottom, and I can take away 3 here and take away 1 here. So I'm left with 1 y on top. Okay, now we're just going to write what we have left. So I have 2y on top over 3 times 5, which is 15, and then I just have x to the 3rd. Okay guys, when we multiply, we're going to kind of either simplify vertically or diagonally. So if I look at my numbers first, so I have the 20 and 4. Well, I know that 4 goes into both those. 4 goes into 20 5 times, 4 goes into 4 1 time. Okay, now I can also see that I have a 5 over here and a 5 over there. Well, I know 5 goes into both of those. 5 goes into 5 1 time, 5 goes into 5 1 time. Okay. Now let's look at these x's right here. I have x squared and I have x. I can take away 1x on the bottom for 1 on top, so I'm left with 1x on top. Okay. Now what else can I cross off? Well, I see an x plus 1, and I either look up and down or diagonally. Well, I have 1 diagonally, so I can cross that one off. Also, I have the x minus 3 on one side over here, and it's diagonally over here, so I can cross those off. Now let's write what we have left. Well, I have an x left, so we're going to write that x. And then we have an x minus 2. Okay. And then on the bottom, I just have a 1, and everything else is canceled out. So that's just over 1. And think we really don't need it over 1, so we can just write it as x minus 2, and that's just our answer right there. Okay, now when I look at this, you can't just start canceling things off like this 12 and 6. These are all package deals, so we can't do that. We have to factor first. So right away I notice that I can take a 4 out of both of those. So I'm going to take a 4 out of both of those, and I'm going to have x plus 3. All right, let's go ahead and do this. I notice over on the other side I have 3x and 6, so I'm going to take a 3 out, and I'm left with x plus 2. Okay, And then on the bottom, I'm going to need to factor those bottoms. So what things multiply to 6 but adds up to 5? Well, 2 and 3 are going to work for me. So I'm going to have x plus 2 and x plus 3. That's a multiplication sign if you couldn't tell. And the same thing with this one on the bottom. I'm going to, what multiplies to negative 21 adds to negative 4. Well, negative 7 and positive 3. So x minus 7, x plus 3. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to look vertically and diagonally to see if we have things match. Okay, be careful. I have an x plus 3 here. I can't cross it off with this x plus 3 over here, but I can cross it off with the one that's up top. Okay, now I also have x plus 2 there for this x plus 2. Okay, and then I don't have anything else that matches, so we're going to go ahead and rewrite what we have. Well, we have a 4 times 3, which is 12, over x minus 7, x plus 3. And that's my final answer. Now we're going to jump into dividing rational expressions. Dividing is going to be very similar to multiplication. There's just going to be one step you have to do first before you actually do essentially the same thing. Okay, so when we divide fractions, here's kind of a refresher on how we do that. You might have heard of like copy, change, flip, keep, change, flip, things like that. But what we do is we keep the first fraction, and then we're going to change it to multiplication and flip the second fraction, so it'll be 3 over 10. Okay, now we can go ahead and do what we just did on the last one, and we can cross simplify. I noticed that 5 goes into both of those. 5 goes into 5 one time, 5 goes into 10 2 times. Same thing with my 3 and 6. 3 goes into it once, 3 goes into it twice. So on top, I got 1 times 1, which is 1, and then 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, that was how we multiply or divided fractions. Now we're going to take that with variables. So essentially what we're going to do is going to do the same thing that we were doing earlier with multiplying, but the first thing we need to do is copy, change, flip, or keep our first fraction, change it to multiplication. So I'm going to have 6x squared plus 9x minus 60 over 8x minus 20 times 8x squared over x squared plus 6x plus 8. You're going to really want to make sure you write it out, because the biggest mistakes people make is they goof up when they flip it and don't just try to rewrite it. Now this is exactly the problems we were doing earlier. Okay, we can't cross things out yet. We have to try to factor. So, okay, the first thing that I noticed is that 6, 9, and 60, a 3 can go into all those. So I'm going to pull a 3 out or factor out a 3, and I'm left with 2x squared plus 3x minus 20. Okay. Now I can actually factor it. So 2 times negative 20 is negative 40. Okay, so what things multiply to negative 40 but add up to 3? That's going to be 8 and negative 5. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it down here. I'm going to have 3, and then I have 2x and x. Okay, so 2 goes into 8 4 times, so plus 4, and I'm going to put my minus 5 there. Perfect. So then now let's go ahead and work on some of these other ones. Well, this one I noticed that 8 and 20, 4 can go into both of those. So I'm going to have a 4, and then I'll have x, 4 goes into 8 2 times, so 2x. Okay, 4 goes into 20 5 times, so minus 5. Okay, and the thing here is when you start seeing things that match up, you kind of have an idea that you're on the right track. Okay, so let's go ahead. Can't do anything with the 8x squared, so that's going to go right there. And let's factor this bottom one, which is what multiplies to 8 but goes into adds up to 6. Well, 4 and 2. So I have x plus 4 and x plus 2. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and cross off any things that are common factors that I can simplify. Well, nice easy one that I see is this 2x minus 5 and this 2x minus 5. Okay. I also see this x plus 4 and this x plus 4. Now, I also notice that 8 and 4, they have a common factor. 4 goes into both of those. So that's going to be 2 and 4 goes into 4 one time. Okay, now I don't see anything else that matches. Okay, so I can't do this x squared and this x because x plus 2 is a package deal. So let's just multiply what we have left. Well, 3 times 2 is 6, so I have 6, and then x squared over just this x plus 2. Kind of had to write up here because I ran out of space at the bottom. But that's our answer right there. Okay, now I know this one looks kind of intimidating. Just relax. Let's just kind of work through it, okay? What we're going to do first is let's just do the part that's in the parentheses, okay? Let's go ahead and do that part first. So we have x squared minus 7x plus 12. And so that's just going to be what multiplies to 12 but adds up to negative 7. Well, we know that's going to be x minus 4 and x minus 3. Okay. I'm going to kind of cross this off so that I know that I'm kind of done with it. Okay. Now, the next one I have is I have x squared minus 16. That's a just perfect square, so we know that we can factor that into x plus 4 and x minus 4 because that's what multiplies to negative 16 but adds up to 0. I'm just going to cross it off so that we don't get confused. I'm kind of done with it. I don't want to waste more space down here though, so let's go on to the next one. What multiplies to 16 adds up to 8. Well, that's positive 4 and positive 4, so that's going to be x plus 4, x plus 4. I'll just use that 4, and let's erase the other one. Perfect. Okay, and then on the bottom, I'm done with that one. So the bottom one multiplies to negative 15. Okay, multiplies to negative 2. Well, that's just negative 5, x minus 5, and x plus 3. Okay, get rid of that 15 so don't get confused. Okay, so now we're good with those. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do this multiplication. We're just going to kind of ignore that division sign to the left and just do the ones in the parentheses. Let's cross off. Remember, we can do vertically or diagonally. So I have x minus 4 here for an x minus 4 there. X plus 4, x plus 4. Okay, and now I'm kind of stuck. So let's go ahead and just rewrite this. We have x minus 3, x plus 4 over x minus 5. Okay, and x plus 3. Bring down the division sign. Okay, and let's go ahead. And I know I'm going to factor them, so let's just factor these top ones real quick. What multiplies to negative 28? Well, that's going to be x minus 7 and x plus 4. And then we're going to have this one, negative 35. Well, I know that that's going to be x minus 7, x minus 5. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. Now, we just talked about what it means to divide. When we divide, we're going to have to keep the first fraction on the left, and then we're going to change this to a multiplication. And we're going to have to flip this. So make sure you have this written down. Pause the video if you haven't. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to erase it, and then I'm going to rewrite it with them flipped. So now I'm going to flip it. So when I flip it, it's going to be x minus 5 on top, x plus 3, and then we're going to have x minus 3, x plus 4. Okay. Now, once we have this set up, we can go ahead and cross off anything that match vertically or diagonally. So x minus 7's go. We have the x plus 4's that'll go. X minus 5's that'll go. Okay. So that means that we are left with an x plus 3 and an x minus 3. Okay. So there's my final answer. Okay, for this exit ticket, just go through and see if you can figure out where they made a mistake. They made a mistake somewhere. See if you can see where it is. Notice that this x plus 3 squared just means x plus 3, x plus 3. Just to kind of a heads up, that's what that means. Okay, go ahead and give it a try.